Hi, it's Dika, and today we are doing a book review for The Truth About Forever by Sarah Dessen. So some background information about this book is that it was published in 2004 and it is a young adult novel. This book is also not part of a series, it is a standalone book. So I finished reading this book a couple of weeks ago, and my summary of the book is that it's about a girl named Macy who is grieving the loss of her father. He passed away about a year and a half ago. One of those friends is a boy named Wes, and they quickly form a bond because he experienced a similar loss when his mother passed away. In the meantime, Macy's older sister is renovating their dad's old beach house, and while she is doing that, it brings up a lot of old memories for all of them. Macy also has a mother who is still grieving the loss of her husband, and she is constantly throwing herself into her work as a real estate developer so that she doesn't have to think about it. That obviously puts a strain between her and Macy. With the help of her new friends, Macy learns that it's okay to grieve and that everyone grieves in their own way. And she also learns to just enjoy the unexpected things in life. Overall, I did not really enjoy this book. I would give it a 3 out of 5 stars. One of the reasons that I didn't really like this novel is that I thought the storyline wasn't very unique and that you had a young girl that had an internal struggle. And she meets a guy who changes her life and makes her realize things that she couldn't realize on her own before. That wasn't a very original idea, but then again, what do you expect when you pick up one of these young adult romance novels? I also didn't really like the author's writing style. I felt that she was too descriptive and things that did not matter. She had a lot of long descriptive sentences, and I kind of wanted to just skim past that to get to the actual events that were happening. For example, when you're introduced to new characters, the author might be descriptive in describing what the character looks like, what they're wearing, their movements, how they talk, so that you get an idea of what kind of person they are. There's one character in the book, Christy, who's very outgoing and she loves to dress up, and we understand that from the beginning. However, throughout the book, the author keeps describing what she's wearing, and it's not important anymore as you keep reading. You already know what she's like. So why do you need to know what she's wearing all the time? I also have some quotes from the book to support that, so let me read that to you. So on page 158, the author says, "Today, she was in her most striking outfit yet, a black leather skirt and motorcycle boots, paired with the loose white peasant blouse. Her hair was held back at the back of her head with a pair of red chopsticks." And then on page 195, the author also says, "She was dressed in a white pleather skirt, a pink short-sleeved fuzzy sweater, and her white go-go boots, her hair pulled up high on her head. She was also wearing sunglasses, huge white ones, and carrying a fringed purse. She looked like she could be at the rodeo, or maybe dancing in a cage." The descriptions are great, but I don't need to know what Christy is wearing every time we see her in the book. I also thought that this novel had very poor editing. I have some examples of that as well. So on page 287, the author says, "The land of truth and consequences," I said, poking at the vegetarian option. "Grilled marinated peppers and spicy black bean burgers, which had, so far, had no takers." That sentence does not make sense. The end of that sentence does not make sense. Let me read that again for you. "Which had, so far, had no takers." I think they said had twice when they only meant to say it once, because I feel like it's supposed to say, "which had, so far, no takers," or "which so far had no takers," not "which had so far had no takers." That's just one example. Another example is on page 297. The author says, "There was so much I wanted to say to her, and for once I wouldn't overthink. Instead, just letting the words come." I feel like because of the tenses of the other verbs in that sentence, it's supposed to say, "and for once I wouldn't overthink. Instead, just let the words come," not "instead just letting the words come." It didn't sound right. On page 310, the author says, "If anyone understood, I could see him reasoning, with that even, cool logic. It was me, right?" I have no idea what that sentence is trying to say. And my last example for how poor the editing in this book was is on page 313 when the author says, "I looked at my watch, then said, I'm have another hour before I'm due home. You want company? I'm pretty sure she's supposed to be saying, I have another hour, but the book says I'm have. I would also like to point out some potentially offensive content because I know some readers try to avoid reading books that have certain things in it. So in The Truth About Forever, there is some bad language in it. When some of the characters are speaking, they do curse. This occurs about less than a handful of times, but I'm just letting you know in case that's something you don't want to read. And there's also one part where a sexual assault almost occurs, so that's some potentially offensive content in case you were wondering. Some things that I did like about the book were how the characters that Macy meets at her new job, I liked how they were very unique and how they each had their own flaws and backstories. There's an excellent contrast between the personalities of the new people she meets and the people that she already knew. I think it symbolizes how her life starts to go in a new direction and how she lets go of that part of her life where she's trying to be so perfect and pretend that she's okay. So that was something I really enjoyed. I did like the storyline with how Macy learns that it's okay to grieve and that people grieve differently. I don't think I've ever read a book that discussed that. I will now read a preview of this book so you can get an idea of what the book is like and the author's writing style. So we are on page 221. Again, I could agree with this, but while for her it meant how I'd pushed myself to be perfect, gotten good grades, scored the smart boyfriend, and recovered from my loss to be composed, together, fine just fine, for me it worked in reverse. I'd been through so much, falling short again and again, and only recently had found a place where who I was, right now, was enough. So just from that paragraph, you could see the author's long and descriptive sentences. That could be good or bad depending if you enjoy a lot of description. And you also see Macy's mindset and how that will change as the book goes on. Some themes that are present in this book are dealing with the death of a parent, navigating grief, and learning to accept who you are. I would recommend this book to young adults and also to people who want to read about characters that experience a loss and are figuring out how to navigate grief. So those are my thoughts on The Truth About Forever by Sarah Dessen, and that is the end of my book review. So I will see you guys later.